Okay, and welcome back to Supernova Labs. I realised in the last video that I made, said I was going to speak about the tax system, then never did. So this is an update to that, and also a couple of other things. Like now we have a web shop where I have finally put all of the designs that I've been making over the past 2 years online, and you can buy them in a whole bunch of forms, be it bags, stickers, you name it. You can imagine it, I've probably got it. So I'll put a link to that in the video description, and also I had the absolute privilege of meeting Stella Assange, so Julian Assange's wife. And oh my god, what an absolute warrior she is. Like, we all know, I mean, if you don't know, you need to go and look this up. Like, the Julian Assange case is, like, absolutely one of the cases of our times. And, yeah, I mean, this is like Nelson Mandela level, like, oppression. So, like, well, the arc of history, fortunately, is in his favour. But if you haven't already, I got a free book from her, but you should check this out. So it's The Trial of Julian Assange by Niels Meltzer, and he is the special rapporteur on torture. So, like, he's part of the UN, been to the Human Rights Commission, been to the human rights lawyers at the UN. They don't want to hear anything about it. So he's written this book as a whistleblower himself, so very, very interesting read. Now, the subject matter at hand, the tax system. Now, this is a delicate, delicate thing. Now, last time I was saying that you have a tax system in the US and also here in the UK, where it effectively traps people in poverty, because there's almost this hub that as you approach it, even if you earn a £1 more, you could end up paying more in tax and earning less overall, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this is entropy, let's say. Let's assume that the people in the tax office, the people that are making policy, do have our best interests at heart, despite the evidence to the contrary. This is attrition over many, many hundreds of years that have led to a point where the tax system is set up the way that it is. Now, what I wanted to position was something a little bit more succinct, a little bit more clear, a little less convoluted, and something that you could teach to kids. And this is the important thing, because one of the biggest issues with Brexit and Trump and far right internationally is that, like, civics have just completely gone down the toilet. Nobody understands what it is to be a citizen anymore, and we're almost in a process of rediscovering that. Like, now with the unions coming back into, like, some form of power, and people organising themselves democratically, like, this is what it means to have an opposition. Like, you cannot rely on a Labour Party that is not led by the Labour movement, right? That's what the antithesis of Tory centralisation is, to keep that balance of power. So we're in a very good position. I think we're in a far better position than we think we are, despite the fact that everything is collapsing around us. So, when the dust clears, I want to propose a tax system that is based entirely by algorithm. And what it is effectively an exponential function. If you haven't seen an exponential function before, it starts out relatively flat. I'll do it this way because it starts out relatively flat, and then all of a sudden it slips up to infinity. And that allows you to play around within that system. So let me define this first. What that effectively does, it sets your minimum, so your starting point, sets your maximum, sets your end point, and all the levels and the slopes and the where it starts is all to play for. Now, what I want to position is that you start the function with a plus a constant. But that constant actually comes from another set of calculations, right? That constant is the effective poverty line needed for a living wage, right? So this is where the universal basic income or unconditional basic income comes into it. That everybody has at least that much, and it's zero at that point, right? So anything you earn above this basic income is your money, but it's taxed progressively as time goes on, up to a point where you cannot earn any more. Even if you tried, like, you can get further and further and further, and like, you're putting more and more and more and more energy into it, but it sets an absolute maximum, which is wild. I appreciate, I know. For those that are less inclined to try and keep capitalism in a socialist box like that, which I honestly believe needs to be the way forwards. You can start out with a polynomial, right? So you can set the slope as like a level of inequality that is functional within a society. So long as everybody's got enough to survive and to thrive, right? With a basic income, that sets a floor. How that slopes and how that progresses over time to the highest tax rate, which would be the highest earners in a logical system, anybody can just like plug their numbers in and they can see, oh, okay, well, like, this is the function, this is where my numbers go, and like this is the tax that's coming out. It should be that obvious. And the fact that it's not is just, I mean, this is the reason why, like, you have so many issues and you need to tax everything for different reasons, and nobody knows how many bloody taxes there are now, and there's a tax on fuel, there's a tax on all this kind of stuff. But doubling back to this exponential function, the reason why I think we're in the situation we're in is that because of automation, capitalists have been able to, I'm not even capitalists at this point, they're more like libertarians, but they have been able to automate labour to a point where it's algorithmic for them. They can just run like high frequency trading algorithms on the stock market and break right through that ceiling into infinity. And that is what we're seeing right now, is that you have this like dynastic, like Gilded Age level wealth being squirreled away out of the economy, and that leaves you, Mr. Politician, less money to spend on bridges, less money to spend on everything like that your society needs to function. This isn't hard. It really isn't hard. Now, as a result, as a result of that, they're able to then use financial instruments internationally to set up shell companies to reinvest inside the country that they have already taken the tax from, to buy assets, and you end up with the water companies, the rail companies, the mail companies, all the actual natural monopolies inside of a country being bought up by the people who are stealing wealth in the first place, which is, it just compounds the issue. So where do we go from here? I mean, there's literal sewage spilling out into the rivers, and I do you know what? I emailed one of the water companies here in the UK. It must have been about 8 to 9 months ago, about the chemical situation, because this is Brexit that's causing this, right? Because the chemicals can't get ratified and checked at the border, they're stuck, and as a result, these companies can't get the chemicals they need to clean the water in all these silos, and as a result, like, they're having to just dump it in the rivers. Like, even though that's against the law, the government's just turning a blind eye to it. So without opening up the ports and like just literally like having it as a humanitarian thing, like just getting on side with the French government and saying, like, look, we need to let this stuff through, because whatever deal you have just isn't working. Alongside that, if we can start implementing reforms at a governmental level that fixes the tax system, that adds a universal basic income, that starts like, I mean, if you watch the series of videos that comes before this, I lay out like, I hope I lay out a compelling vision for something we can choose as a better future. Like, I don't want to force this on anybody, it's not my place to. It's in a democratic system, we all choose. We need to choose to better. When we do, we need to carry that to the EU and teach them, as they need to re-teach us. It's not one way. And then let that carry on up to the UN, because the UN right now is an absolute mess. Absolute mess. I mean, like, I was there in Austria at the UN for it was UNOSA. It was like a space thing at the UN, and the delegates there were there, but in name only. Like, it was like they were all saying the right words in the right order, just to like go and do the dance. And the spirit, like, it just felt completely soulless. Like, there was no spirit left in what was set up to protect the world from major wars like what's happening in the Ukraine right now, and to hold the balance of power. Like, without it, I mean, it's just a free-for-all, and that's no good for anyone. I believe in the better angels of our nature. I know that we have it in us to fix all of this. But failing the government stepping up and, I mean, just being a government and like functioning as a government, instead of some cult of personality around who can enrich the already like ridiculously rich even more. I mean, we just need to go and do all this stuff, right? The people that are in the sewage treatment plants that are releasing this sewage need to stand up and say, no, we are not going to do this. Or start undermining whatever structure is stopping you getting these chemicals into the country, and get them into the country. And if they're not available, then we need to work out how to make them in this country, like, fast. Like, it's just chemistry. Like, you can dig things out of the ground and turn them into other things that we need. That's the way society functions, is that you have minds that you then use to produce the things that you need. We might not have them in as much of an abundance as some other countries that export to us, but all of the elements are available here. Maybe I'm just being idealistic, and I probably am, but shoot me, right? Like, what the... If I am the only person that is idealistic left, then I'm just going to have to do it for everyone. I believe in you. We're gonna be okay. You're allowed to believe it too.